one of the things. All right, we might even be live right now. So on Coffee,
it says the broadcast is live. Okay,
all right. I think it's real. So, welcome to the ChirpCast.
Like it.
I've never done this before. This is going to be the first episode of it. My name is Corey Cottrell. This is my friend Fred Eder, who's going to be a channel owner on Chirp. The basic idea of this podcast is I want to interview all of the interesting people and projects and creators that are going to be owning channels on Chirp when it launches. And of course, I'll be interviewing them when they're done. Of course, we have in mind like a bunch of really cool video intros. Now that we've done that for my other show, Coffee, in the last 24 hours, we tried that out today.
That was awesome.
Yeah, this is sort of Fred is available now, and I wanted to talk to him about this stuff now anyway. So, my goal is to make this the highest production thing that I've ever been a part of. Sadly, the bar is very low. We usually just do everything live because it's how we roll. But frankly, Fred, people like you have inspired me to really want to get my shit together, as it were, because this Chirp thing is a big deal. Like, I'm the head of sort of community development for Chirp. They brought me onto that team explicitly for that, and I want to do them proud. If that makes sense, right? Like, this is going to be an amazing application and social media platform after it launches, hopefully within a week or two or whatever. And I'm feeling a kind of a real duty to pour some energy into making it look really, really sharp. So this is like an hour's worth of thinking of that, and it will get better very quickly. So anyway, Fred, thank you so much for joining me. I know I've been smashing your brain for quite a while as far as what we might be able to do with Chirp and how to solve for Facebook and Twitter and all of that other stuff. So cheers.
Thank you.
We actually have a comment. This whole thing is we've got, because we're on the So Local page. We're also on the Chirp only group, which is kind of fun. Yeah, David Miller just suggested I'm very busy. It's true. You have no idea. I was going 900 miles an hour until we got here after coffee was done an hour ago. So here's what I want to do. I want to get to know, or have everybody in the Chirp family get to know Uncle Fred and Fred's Front Porch. So could you maybe tell us how the podcast started? Definitely spend a lot of time on whose fault that is. But then, tell us about the podcast and about where you're headed.
All right. The podcast started because I watched or listened to, I guess, my first podcast, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, which was this obscure little show called Moving Forward. And I really liked it. And so I was running a blog at the time, and I wrote a review about the show that I thought was pretty good. And evidently the hosts did too, because they asked me to be a guest on their show. I am really not much of a guest on anyone's show because I'm frighteningly unimportant, but that's kind of part of the point of my show. But you and Rio said, hey, no, man, you got to have a podcast. So I said, okay. And I took a shot, and I recorded a 8-minute pilot off of Anchor. And it was kind of embarrassingly bad. And it's frightening that it's among the most viewed episodes I have ever done. It's like, no, I really didn't know what I was doing yet. But the objective of the show, and I think of my life, is I want to change the world. And I am really well aware of the fact that I won't. My father told me once, Dad taught philosophy of education for 100 million years. And he said Camus said it, but I could never find the reference, and then he died and I never did. But Camus was supposed to have said, to believe you can change the world is insanity. Failure to try is cowardice. Okay, I'm going to try. No, I'm not going to succeed, particularly not on my tiny little front porch. But I hope that I can change one idea in one mind at a time, and that's what I try to do. And it all really came about because of Andrew Yang. I had never heard of him and he popped up on my Facebook one day with this bizarre idea about giving everybody $1,000 a month. And I thought, my God, what a bizarre gimmick. On the other hand, I need the money. And then I started learning about it. And I fell in love with humanity first. Fuck this America first shit. I like the idea that, you know what, as it turns out, all human beings matter. You, me, and the people I don't like. If you are alive and on this planet, you deserve what is necessary to survive. We've made up this society based on little green pieces of paper. And someone told me, no, they're not paper, Fred. They're actually cloth and linen, whatever. We decided that these pieces of paper and these digits on a computer accurately show your value. I'm sorry, they don't. But we have the Puritan work ethic that says you must work and you must work hard, otherwise you are of no value. First, I would argue with their definition of work. No, I don't go into the Alorica office and sell direct TV anymore, but I work 60 hours a week at least on my podcast. Why? Because it's fun, because I like what I'm doing, because I feel good. Work doesn't have to mean pointless hours invested in something that accomplishes nothing and is exhausting and frustrating. Work means, what can I do to contribute to the world? What can I do to make the world a little nicer? Whether it's music, art, literature. I have a friend that used to do the podcast with me. He now makes better money than I do playing video games on something called Twitch. I'm happy for him. Look, work doesn't have to be, let's steal the very few minutes that you have to live and make them suck. And I don't think that life has to be just misery. And this came from my following Andrew Yang. My God, if we and now Kamala Harris, I think, has proposed $2,500 a month until the end of the pandemic. Fine. Right. By the time the pandemic's over, guess what? We're going to have learned that, wait, this shit works. And then I think we'll be able to keep it. And we need to keep it. Nobody, again, it has nothing to do with whether I like them or not, or whether I approve of their lifestyle or not. Nobody deserves to be without the basic resources we need to live. Everyone deserves a place to live and sufficient food, medical care, decent public education, the means of communication, all of those things, all people should have. And we have the resources. My God, we have way more resources than we need. Anyway, I have just summed up Fred's Front Porch podcast. There are like 55, 56 episodes. And that's really what it's about. And I didn't know what it was going to be about. You just said you need to do a podcast. So my first episode, I listed my 6 ideas and ran. So
yeah, it just because I know that Fred won't say this. So yeah, it was on my podcast with Rio Moving Forward podcast where we had him on, and immediately I was like, motherfucker, you need a podcast. Holy shit. Like, cause then you got the kind of voice where even if you were reading the phone book, it would sound really, really good. But the quality of the podcast, and your first one was fine. Like your first one is exactly how I do all my podcasts, which I agree is a low bar, but that's, it's the kind of thing I'm now sort of incentivized to improve. But because of your mastery, frankly, in a very, very short period of time, and the amount of creative juice that goes into your podcasts, I mean, it's dude, you're a powerhouse. I cannot recommend people going to Fred's Front Porch and checking it out, because it's just they're really, really good and thoughtful, and you really do clearly want to change the world and realize the futility in that and right. Yeah. So yeah, Laurie just commented, what are we doing? Because again, we are doing this live, and I think I probably will, just because I love the interaction. So I am going to be interviewing all of the content creators and project runners that are going to be owning a Chirp channel. Now, once Chirp goes live, you're going to be able to go in there, spend some coins, which the whole ecosystem is going to run on cryptocurrency called coins. Everyone, by the way, just to give some people some little detail tidbits, everybody when you start is going to start with 1,000 coins. Right, so you're going to have a little bit of skin in the game right off the bat. If you've been using your referral link and you've invited a few people up to the waiting list, you're going to be able to actually start with more than 1,000, which is fun. So right off the bat, I think for the first few, a channel is going to cost 100 coins, which is not much. It is very quickly going to, the price of that is going to go up. Probably to 500 and probably to even more than 1,000, because we don't want just anyone making a channel, because we want to have good channels, right? We want to have people that are really, really invested. Where it's going to be awesome to own a channel, every single time somebody posts anywhere on the system, but anytime somebody posts on, say, Fred's channel, right? So I go in there and I want to post a clip that I heard of his, or a picture, or just a hello or whatever. So it cost me 4 coins to make a post. So basically Fred will get half of that. So every time anyone posts in your channel, Fred, you're going to get 2 coins.
Cool.
Right. And of course, over time that'll build up. That's weird. Facebook user just asked if this is live. Yes, it is. It is live right now. Watch this. Facebook user. It's weird that there's no name attached to that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, Laurie. I'm, in charge of developing and kind of cultivating the community around Chirp. And the way that I thought to do that ultimately was to take the people that are going to be channel owners, and a channel is really kind of like a cross between a Facebook group and a Patreon page, right? And have one kind of place where they can start to get to know each other. On my short list that I've created over the last couple of days, obviously we're having Fred on right now. I've got Matt coming on, who's in multiple venture capital groups, as well as crypto groups. I'm going to be interviewing the guy from discussions.app, which is actually another social platform, kind of like Medium, that is working in the blockchain space. I'm going to be interviewing the guy who started Nifty Wizards, which is like a brand new blockchain-based, Telegram-based game where you can actually, own these digital artifacts online. It's messed up and cool. So he's going to be owning a channel. He actually also started Chirp, just so you guys know, little multitasking there. I'm going to be interviewing Jenner, who needs to own a channel for, his Mindwave group and other podcasts that he's doing. So, yes, Chirpian Minister of Community. That's the title that I've picked for myself. So far, nobody's yelled at me to change it yet, so I'm just going to keep it. And stuff like that. So yeah, I'm imagining like I will be owning a channel inside Chirp that is just for these conversations, just for the Chirp podcast. And of course, I'll be interviewing the Chirp dev team as we do stuff. And I think we'll probably have some weekly roundups where, whoever had the most activity in their stuff. There's a lot of ideas that we could do. It's just like some of the special sauce that I can bring to a project is that I do stuff like this, and I love talking to people like Fred. And down the road, like when we have 100 of these channels and 100 of these episodes that we've done, there's going to be all sorts of opportunities for cross-pollination and for knitting that community together, which I personally think is going to be one of the only ways that we can kind of even remotely fight the David and Goliath battle between a startup like Chirp and things like Twitter and Facebook. A rant over.
Wasn't a rant, it was a plug. And I think it's important to have something other than Facebook for several reasons. First of all, I have a natural aversion to billionaires. I just don't like them. I actually have an episode that I have to redo because it occurs to me that somehow the music got lost, but I have an episode called something like It's Immoral to Be a Billionaire. And if you really understand the numbers, it is. I did the math, and I think something like 90, if you could spend, I believe you could spend $1 a minute for the next 1,900 years and never run out of money if you were a billionaire. So you could spend $1 a minute for the rest of your life, and the next 18 generations of your family could do the same thing, assuming everybody lives for 100 years, and you would never run out of money. And now you're going to tell me that you're going to allow people not to have enough money to pay the electric bill, put gas in the car, buy food, or pay their rent. Really? I don't expect people, I would love to contribute to more charity, but I live on $300 a month right now, which I make from Patreon. I just did a very nice episode about how much Arizona's unemployment system sucks. But, I can't contribute money because I don't have it. But when you have more money than you need, when you can contribute $100 million and not even notice that you have less money than you did before, why the hell are you not? And what kind of, for me, that's immoral. I don't think that anyone needs to, give half of your wealth away or something like that. But for heaven's sake, other people exist too. And well, yeah, but I earned that money all by myself. Oh, the hell you did. We paid for the schools in which you learned. We paid for the roads on which your goddamn trucks drive. We paid for, the military that keeps you safe. We paid for the research, for the medicine that keeps you alive. You didn't do shit by yourself. There have been very few humans who ever did. From the moment you are born, you have possibly 72 hours to live without another human being to help you. That's what we do. We help each other. And the idea that I'm going to have all of this and you can't have any, that's immoral, in my view. I want
definitely
something besides Facebook.
Yeah, well, and this, right, and I think that goes to, I think I would really like the idea of billionaires as long as there was like an exceptionally generous, like lower middle class UBI. You know what I mean? Like that. Like I want people to be able to, create massive amounts of value and produce massive amounts of good, and earn massive rewards, and then have that extra capital to marshal other projects, right?
Sure.
But that combined with the amount of political power that you get with it, and the amount of sort of bifurcation that happens when there are people literally, getting chucked out of hospitals because they don't have insurance, like that's, I agree, that just feels deeply immoral to me. So this is where, and it was Kurt actually that came up with this. We'd been talking about it for a long time, but we're creating a standard that we would like to see other social platforms adopt, called the 50-50 protocol, 50-50 standard, where basically every bit of ad revenue that comes in, every bit of revenue that comes in to the Chirp system, to the company, 50% of it is going to go back out to the content creators. Now, whether that's going out to the top 10 sometimes, or to just the top creators, or to every creator, depending on how much they put out, that's something that's really important to us, and we want to make sure that we're doing that from the very beginning. And then, of course, the other difference is, Facebook makes a lot of its money from tracking the ways that we use the site, tracking people's data, selling people's data, that kind of thing. Chirp is just never going to do any of that. Like we're not going to track people. We're not going to make money off of that data. Now, granted, that is our current position. I can imagine, although Kurt is not for this yet, but I can imagine a system down the road where we might have an opt-in way to benefit from the collective use of our data in a way that the community would probably vote to accept. But that's like a couple of 3-4 years down the road kind of problem to have. So yeah, we want to create a viable alternative, right? So that's why we're doing this with a cryptocurrency backing, right? So there's going to be a crypto token called coins. Everybody's going to get 1,000 when they start up. That probably won't always be the case. So you're definitely going to want to log in sooner than later to make sure you're starting with some. And every time you post, it's going to cost 4 coins to post. But if 4 people like it, then you're in the clear, because every time somebody likes one of your posts, that is 1 coin that they're giving to you. It's like an automatic sort of an economic attachment to our attention and the things that we appreciate. It's like encoding gratitude into the system is my favorite way of thinking about it. Like it's just automatic. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and the other thing I would like is a place perhaps a little less toxic than Facebook. And I think if you have to invest your money or your coins into saying something, you have to ask yourself, do I really want to pay to say fuck you? You know,
right, and really, like, how much more receptive to some shit heel commenting on your thing are you going to be? So this is one of the debates that's ongoing, and and this is exactly what I want to do with these conversations as well, right? Like, I want to get to know everyone's projects, but then I really do want to get into, what are your major pain points with social media? What do you really love about social media, right? And so we can hopefully solve for the first one and amplify the second one with everything that we do, which is a conversation I'm excited to have on an ongoing basis. So, Fred, we initially had a conversation about this, and we were talking about, say in your channel, it would cost to comment, right? Within hours, another good friend of mine, Sue Gentry, who is not a grandmother, inside joke, was suggesting that, like, she definitely wanted to have the comments be free, and there was like a sort of an intense emotional reaction on both sides of that argument. Now, what I would like to do, I've been suggesting to the team, and they're like backlogged with just getting the site ready, right? So this is on my list of stuff to start bugging them with for after this is done, is have it so that the channel owner can set that as a parameter of their own channel, right? So in Fred's Front Porch, if you want to go in there and make a post or comment on one of his posts, it's going to cost you a coin, or it's going to cost you 4 coins because Uncle Fred don't give a fuck, right? And honestly, like, if it costs me 4 coins, I've got 1,000 to start out. Like, I would probably do that, right? So that would be a thing where you could set it and start experimenting yourself with making sure that you're still having a conversation, but you're incentivized as the owner to both make sure that there's a lot of people commenting, but that, if somebody does want to say fuck you, they're going to have to pay you to do it, which is fun. That's cool.
No, I mean, if you want to be rude to me, fine, pay me and be as rude as you want. I don't care. The worst experience I ever had was on my Front Porch podcast page. I won't do it again. I boosted a post, right? Because I thought, hey, I really could use some listens. And it was about unmasking the selfishness of willful ignorance. And it was about idiots who, well, I'm not wearing a mask because it's my political right. Oh, shove that up your ass. But I had like 235 comments. Maybe 4 of the people actually listened to the show, and the rest of them were just telling me to go fuck myself. Pay me if you want to say that. Otherwise, please shut up. I don't need that, So, yeah, absolutely. I will, I don't know. I want everybody to comment. I want them to feel free to comment, but I don't want them to feel free to do it, without thinking about what they're saying. So. Right, I'll probably charge a coin.
Yeah, right. Even just create a tiny little bit of friction, right? So a comment is going to cost exactly as much as liking your post, for example. I don't know, if that'll work, but we should try it, right? Like that just seems like something that needs to be tried for sure. And I also wonder, and it right now it's set to free, but I'm personally lobbying to have the channels have either a one-time buy-in or a Patreon-like monthly subscription rate, right? So if you want to be on Fred's Front Porch, because again, you could set it at like almost nothing, right? You could set it at one coin, which is essentially like a like, and that'll just ding people over time. Or you could set it at 500 if you want to make like an exclusive place. Because honestly, the economy is going to have to work itself out. We're going to be setting some initial boundaries, right? As far as like everyone gets 1,000 when they first come in. So that's going to kind of create a bit of it. Every like is 1 coin. So when you get in, you have like 1,000 coins, or what would it be, about 250 posts, right? Or whatever combination thereof. So the economics of that are going to kind of have to work themselves out. But I really hope that we get to make it so that it's all variable and set by the channel owner. So I think that's going to allow it to be decentralized enough so that we really get a feel for what this kind of ecosystem, because nobody's tried this really before, right? Like there's been a couple little versions of it that quite frankly aren't going to be anywhere near as cool as Chirp. Not that I'm biased. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And Kurt and I have been having, conversations around. I don't even want to use the word censorship. Like, we as a company, and the creators of this platform and the community that is going to be dedicating their time and hearts and souls to making it work, making it a place where we start our day, right? Like, we want to have people spending far more time on Chirp than they do on Facebook or Twitter. That's the goal. Where do we draw the line, right? Because if we go completely and totally, we're never going to censor anyone. My initial concern was cool. I mean, that will make us where all the assholes go, right? Just as a, like it's like a giant neon sign that says KKK, please come here. And the second that I brought that up, Kurt was like, no. If you're racist at all, you can fuck off. We're going to kick you off. I'm like, okay, we got to define that. But that's, so we started kind of thinking about this in terms of a first principles argument, right? Like, what are we simply not going to tolerate? Racism was one. Any, implication for violence was another. This is not an easy problem, right? Up to and including, is there something that we could do, like Reddit, for example, that has channels that are quarantined, right? Like, maybe, you have a channel and you're not really breaking, like there could be sort of arguments where we just let you have your channel, but it's not going to show up anywhere else on the site like that. Those are going to be interesting things. And I want everyone's opinion on that as we start to build this out like that. I want that to be a community conversation so that we can do our very, very best to create something that where that toxicity just comes down. Because I actually started reading a book called 10 Reasons Why You Should Delete Every Single One of Your Social Media Accounts right now. Right? Because it gets into this, right? It gets into how Facebook uses algorithms to literally control your mind, and they can control whole communities. They've done double-blind studies on us, right? And they can actually improve or diminish the gestalt mood of millions of people at will, and they've proven it, right? A, we don't want to do that. But B, like, we do want you to keep coming back, right? So we're going to be using some of the same kind of, like, we're going to send notifications to your phone, for example, right? It's still going to be a dopamine shot when you get coins. Now it's not only a dopamine shot, but you're like going to have more, inherent value that you can spend on the site anywhere you want. So, I want to learn all the reasons why people want to destroy all of social media so that we can at least be aware of it and take a run at solving for it. I think what that book doesn't talk about is that, there's 8 people here. 6 people have liked it. A bunch of people have commented. We're in this decentralized community, all locked in our houses in a pandemic. And maybe some of you guys don't know who Fred is, right? There's going to be a bunch of episodes like there. I think we skip over how easy it is for us now to connect in a meaningful way, right? To have a larger human family that is connected through these social media platforms, right? And so we'll be obviously trying to ramp up how effective that is as well.
Yeah, you were saying you wanted to amplify the good parts about Facebook. And quite frankly, for me, I started on it like 10 or 11 years ago. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And then accidentally started bumping into people that, people I hadn't seen for 40 years from high school and stuff. And it's like, love it. Cool. And, now, Facebook has saved my ass any number of times. I live in the most abject poverty in the world. 4 times in the last 3 years, I've had to do GoFundMes to stay alive. Thank you, Facebook, for having people here and introducing me to people that I was never going to meet any other way. I've got a million complaints about Facebook, but let's face it, they have connected me to a world that I wasn't going to have otherwise. And for those of us who are terrible introverts, I mean, basically, unless, my heroes are playing, a concert, I'm not leaving my house. I just don't. I don't like people. You all scare the living shit out of me. But I can do it here. And,
right.
I feel perfectly confident where it's like, okay, if you all scare me too much, I can turn off my phone and go smoke a bowl and you can't hurt me anymore. I like that aspect. of Facebook, and I liked that it connected me to people I wasn't going to see any other way. And some of them have been, just really deep and meaningful connections that have,
Right.
changed my life. I want that aspect. Get rid of the toxicity and increase the connection and the the feeling of that we are all us. There is no them. Let's increase that and be done with the ugliness as much as we can.
I think part of that too, and this is something as the Minister of Culture might have to take a run at this, is that this might not be like the toxicity thing specifically, might not be really solvable by technology, right? And like I hope we find some ways to limit it or really incentivize its opposite, right? Using the carrot instead of the stick, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the things I want to inject into these conversations is that, and repeat it, right? Use the mirror effect, really drive it home so that we're all talking about it amongst ourselves, is that there are best practices and things that you can learn and ways that you can personally engage that once you learn starts to give you a lot more return on investment, a lot more ROI per minute spent on social media than normal. For example, arguing most of the time gives you around the same return on investment as shooting yourself in the dick with a bazooka. It's just my personal
experience. Your very favorite metaphor, Corey. I've only heard you use that 340 times.
It is. There's an emoji sequence that people are now using on Twitter, and I am here for that. That is cool.
I thought you invented it. I've never heard anyone else say it. I thought.
Oh no, I invented it. It's just become a meme, and I like it. I am totally cool with that. But no, cool. And that isn't always true, right? You could definitely have, especially in the crypto space, I see this a lot, right? And not all the time, but a lot more than anywhere else, where you have discussions where people are, it's not so much an argument as it is for, and there's still opinions, but it really is a search for more data and better data and learning, as opposed to the hyper bifurcation of politics, which is basically just, I'm not going to wear a mask because the guy with the red hat said not to, right? Like, it's so dumb that you can't, it's just intractable. You're not going to have somebody come around and go like, oh no, you totally made some good points, Fred. I have totally changed my mind. Like, that's just not going to happen. Yeah. So,
but you keep trying, yeah.
Well, this is the thing. Right. But I do think, however, that like the one-on-one discussions on social media are very close to profitless as far as moving us towards our goal. Not completely, right? One of the arguments I see, and I used to make it because I used to do this all the time. Like, I am literally like a surviving addict of arguing online, and not immune from doing it still every once in a while until I catch myself. Is that you're never going to convince them really of anything, whoever you're arguing with, but you might reinforce or help someone who is never going to sort of be that vocal about it, who might come across and read it and be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not crazy, right? So there's that. I still think that's too low, but what I do think is really good is exactly what you're doing, Fred. Like, you will make a podcast and collect a lot of these ideas and go on there and speak from the heart in a way that I think will affect people thousands of times more than any back and forth on a social media platform, right? Which again is why, like, I want you to have a channel. I want you to be developing a community of people that really, really love your podcast and are pushing those ideas out there, because it amplifies. Like, you are an exceptionally good person. Your voice will be amplified. The community that grows up in your, in your Chirp channel, we're going to grow that megaphone until it's gigantic. And that, in my humble opinion, will be millions of times more valuable than ever arguing with one person online ever.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's why I'm kind of excited about doing this, because, especially getting in on the ground floor. And yeah, I have no doubt there are going to be 50 things wrong with it that you're going to find in the first day. And then you will fix 45 of those. And, because this is what it is. Whenever you do something new, there's always, I didn't I hadn't thought of this. Because you can't think of everything. But the nice idea, but what I like is that I'm actually going to be dealing with the human being. Try to get some help on Facebook. I don't believe you can actually talk to a person on the phone. I don't believe you can.
No. Well, and this is I've been using this as a selling point for our community specifically, because there's nowhere else online where you can say, "Hey, Corey, can we get this?" And I tell the dev team it might show up tomorrow, right? Like when we were in our beta on the links chain, and we would have this idea or that idea. Like somebody had the idea of coming up with a leaderboard, right? And the leaderboard is like, how many coins have you earned? And whoever is in the top 10 or top 20 or top 30 or whatever, like you're on the leaderboard. You're like, holy shit, I'm doing amazing, right? And that was very, very motivating for me personally. And it showed up the next day. Like it just was suddenly there. And there's going to be a lot of things, right? Like the idea around making channels private, or doing this or doing that, or having admin tools, because there's not really going to be any when we first start, right? So we're going to see what the highest priorities are for us, and we're going to have a channel for suggestions. So without talking to me, you're just going to be able to go to a Chirp channel and say, hey, can we get this, that, or the next thing or whatever, and they're just going to add them to a list. Like I've seen them do this, and they're exceptionally fast and really responsive. And Kurt's actually really fucking smart about kind of prioritizing what needs to happen when. So yeah, I'm super stoked about that.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, is that, right now, obviously you're going to be very, very small. So the couple of guys that you've got doing this are going to be able to handle all the suggestions that we have. In the like last week, I did an episode in which Chirp appears as something from the future.
Dude, that was so cool. Yeah.
And
AOC,
I
need to clip that out. Yeah.
Yeah. But I have it as this massive thing. By then, what you're going to want is a team of 10, 15,000 people who really know what the hell they're doing, know what they're talking about, can actually take action, so that when somebody needs something, and maybe you won't, because by then you'll have everything so worked out that it just works. But it's that human interaction. I'm frustrated as hell about Arizona's unemployment right now, because it is impossible. If you happen to make the website work the first time and everything works just right, congratulations, you can get unemployment. But if you can't, there's no one to email. And if you call, I'm not kidding, this happened to me the other day. You can sit there for 35 minutes before a recorded voice comes on and says, I'm sorry, due to the pandemic, there are too many people in the queue. Please call back tomorrow. Fuck that.
Yeah, it's just
when
crazy.
When we have Chirp, I would like to be able to talk to a human being who could say, oh yeah, Fred, we've already done that here. It's this. Or, hey, I've never thought of that. Cool. Let me talk to the guys and let's see what we can do. Human beings. Yeah. Please make that, an inherent part of the channel. That would be huge to me.
That's where I live, right? So I was talking with some people about Schipul this morning, and I knew just enough about cryptocurrency to follow some directions and make a token, right? And I know nothing about dev. I can't fucking make a website. I don't know shit. Yeah. Which is the biggest joke, right? Like that's the whole kind of entertainment about it. But what it forced me to do is, while Schipul was growing as a community, we had to do human power for everything. Literally everything. Yeah. You want transactions to go out? I need to do that myself. Well, there's like 1,000 a day, and I can't even do that in a day. So we get a bunch of volunteers to start doing that. And then even that got too much. So we had to kick everybody out of Basecamp and start tribes. And here's where I feel like this is really interesting. The channels on Chirp are fucking tribes. That's all they are. Right?
All right.
And it's going to be one for every podcast, one for every idea. Right? Like, think about this. Would you think of a hashtag that you would want to own on Twitter? Because on Chirp, you fucking can. Because the channels are just hashtags.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So it's gonna create a really interesting gold rush, I think. Or sort of land rush, almost, like people staking out the kinds of ideas that that they want to own channels on and stuff. It's gonna be weird. So, go ahead.
I was just saying that's why I'm excited. Is I would like to be in a place where I feel like, and it's the same reason that I am obsessed with. I am setting a goddamn alarm clock for 6:45 every morning because I want to do #coffee. I want to be in a place where, okay, look, I'm okay here. These are other human beings. They are decent people, and I am not going to get the shit kicked out of me for having an idea that differs from someone else's. And that's what I look forward to in Chirp is these are people. These are not algorithms. These are not, and we will have some control of, hey, you're a racist prick. You're gone now. We don't need you. That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and that to me, one of the things I'm noticing about how we are processing information as a culture now is that, for better or worse, there were editorial gatekeepers before, right? There were sort of quote unquote experts. And to greater or lesser degrees, they actually were, right? There are journalistic standards that they held to, and not always, but generally speaking, that was a real thing. And now any dumb fuck, like elephant humping weirdo, can go on. I don't know why that came in, but like any idiot on YouTube can go, like, actually the entire COVID thing is all about 5G and masks are just to control your mind. Like, what? And they'll get 1 million views.
Yeah.
Right. And so that information disseminates so quickly. And I think, and this is, again, not something that could necessarily be solved with software, but it can be solved culturally. You as a human, anyone listening to this, and I know, Fred, you do this. We definitely do it on Coffee. I do it on my personal page. You have complete editorial control where you have it. On your Facebook page, if somebody is spreading shitty ideas, nuke them. This is how I do it. And I'm not even saying that what I'm doing is perfectly the right thing. It's what I've decided to do. Where I have editorial control, I will absolutely exercise it. If you spread a conspiracy theory on my page, we're never talking on, I might warn you once, but you'll never be anywhere near me on social media again. That's just a thing, right? If you come and comment on Coffee and you're an asshole, we'll just get rid of you. Like, I want to have high quality conversations with good information that we're not always going to agree. And that's great. That's how it's supposed to work. But if you're just a fucking racist shithead, no, you don't get to be here. Right. And everyone has to make those choices for themselves. But I implore everyone to start thinking in those terms. Everything that happens on any tiny little slice of the internet that you control, you are tacitly allowing to be amplified, period. Right? And so what we do with that, you have to make your own choice about what we do with it, but be intentional.
There's something that, you just touched on that I think is something you might want to consider in Chirp. When we were having #coffee the other day and we had that moron in there, he had 3 or 4 different accounts, and he kept returning 5. Yep. Okay. Can we avoid that on Chirp? Is there a way?
This is something really interesting. I was talking with Boyce from Mindful Skeptics, which reminds me, he's in my first 10 targets for doing these episodes. I got to talk to him really quickly. Anyway, he was talking about KYC. So one of the things, and that's know your customers. So that's basically like, right? When you sign into a banking app or to like a crypto app where you can buy cryptocurrency, they need to know exactly who you are legally, right? So you're sending them in a picture of your ID and they do a rectal exam. It's this whole thing. Minus the rectal exam, I think. So Kurt really wanted to have it so that there was no KYC on Chirp, right? So anyone can sign up. He loves the anonymity of it. He's like a legit hacker, so he's from that world. But what I'm going to be advocating for is a checkmark system. So you can opt in, and it's not going to be a blue checkmark, but it'll be a green checkmark, basically saying like, no, this is who I am, right? I am putting my actual name to this. And then as channel owners, maybe we can decide we might not take people that don't have the green checkmark, right? Because then it puts the power in our hands. So if you want to show up, you're you, and like we can Google the shit out of you. You're a real person, right?
Okay. Yeah. All right. So green checkmark, blue checkmark. Explain to old men.
It's not really like the blue checkmark is just like Twitter says you're real, right? I don't even really know, like that you're a celebrity, and that you're like the real Jenner Zeno account as opposed to a fake one. Whereas like Boyce actually suggested the green checkmark because it's a little bit different. Like we're inventing this, right? We're making this shit up.
Yeah.
That where we could just have the system, and I think it's actually relatively easy to do. You can actually outsource the KYC to some companies that are already working connected to different cryptocurrency or blockchain type outfits and stuff. I really like that idea because I think that's something that I would probably do. Right? If you're going to be coming into a channel where we're having discussions like that, if it ever becomes an issue, right? I mean, if it's one of my channels, you're gonna have to pay to get in, right? Again, maybe not a lot, but it's not going to be zero. But then even like streaming eventually, if we ever get to that size where we can actually do that, I like that idea because that means you're going to have one account. Then if you get turfed, you get turfed, and that's it.
Turfed, another word I don't know. You mean
just
get tossed
gotten rid of? Like turf. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. This is interesting. I want to actually keep these around a half an hour, and we've totally fucked that up.
Yeah, okay.
So this is 45 minutes already, but I like that. But I wanted to get to this. David Miller said, Jonathan Haidt suggested there should be a way to anonymously or somewhat enforce unique accounts. Tying an account to an identity would prevent a lot of dishonesty. Yeah, so, I'm not sure how we could do that sort of anonymously or semi-anonymously, but I do know that we could just have an opt-in, right? And that way, I mean, hell, you got a double-blind study right there, right? We're going to see what the quality of conversations are like without it and what they're like with it. And then the channel owners get to decide. Channel owners get triple purple checkmark. We'll have to run that one up the flagpole and see what happens.
I like it.
Anyway, Fred, thank you so much. Jenner, you're on deck for coming on here before too much longer transpires. My English capacity is already done. I've been live for too long today already. Fred, thank you very much. Fred is going to be a Chirp channel owner. It's going to be Fred's Front Porch podcast and maybe something else if he decides to do a couple, because that is a thing you're allowed to do.
We'll see. But I just want the podcast. That's all. So
it'll be good. It'll be good. All right. Thank you guys very much for coming. This has been the inaugural test case for a Chirp podcast. So there you go.
See you guys. Thank you. All right. Yeah.